No, no system represents justice because justice doesn't exist anywhere on the planet. You don't have a just system anywhere. That's something that is yet to be produced. That's why I always use you can call it a slogan, but it's a direction, it's a directive, a suggestion. Replace white supremacy with justice. Now, justice, according to what I have written, I made up a definition for it because there's no so-called legal definition for the word justice in the Northwestern Hemisphere, I've been told. So I made up one years ago, consisting of two parts, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. That's part one. Part two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, as far as I know, there's no place on what we call planet Earth where that situation exists or has ever existed in recorded history. But that's what everybody on the planet should have as a goal, whether they ever achieve it or not. That's a difficult thing to achieve. You're going to guarantee that nobody's mistreated? Because that's what it requires. You can't say you have it unless that you got to have that. I mean, according to compensatory logic, you might say, or universal logic, you got to have a situation where nobody is mistreated. And number two, you got to guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Underline constructive in every area of activity for that one person. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Everything about that person is constructive. I mean, and you got to guarantee that. Just one person out of all those the millions and millions and millions of people on the planet, nobody gets mistreated. That should be the aim. And you start with, how do you do that? You start with right where you are.
Yes, sir.
There's 10 people in a room. 10 people in a room. You just say, okay, now, is anybody here who thinks that they're being mistreated? And we're going to examine it and see. We're going to go over everything, and see that, because nobody in this room is supposed to be mistreated. There's 10 of us here. We're in this room. We're on this planet. We say we believe in justice. All right, let's prove it. Is there anybody in this room who's being mistreated by anybody else into or out of this room? Anybody who's receiving mistreatment, because we got to get on that, okay? That's number one. Everybody in the room might say, well, I'm being mistreated. Well, you start with everybody and start with the person who is getting the most mistreatment, okay? That's the logical process.
Yes, sir.
And then you go to number two. Is everybody in this room getting the help, the most constructive help that he or she needs? Everybody. And they'll say, oh, yeah, well, everybody needs help, which is true. Everybody on the planet needs help. There's no person on the planet that doesn't need some kind of help all the time.
Okay.
Okay? So you start with the person who needs the most help and then work back.
Okay.
That's the procedure. See, codification is about getting into details about how do you go about doing things. That's one thing that's been missing. We speak broadly about, well, somebody ought to do something. That's usually the way that we do after we have a 3-day convention at some stadium talking about black people's problems, but nobody walks away with a prescription of what exactly to do and not do. And that's why we need a code, something we have never had.
Okay.
We've never had a compensatory counter-racist code, and we should be building one. And that's about specifics. What do you do? How do you go about doing it? Right down to the finest detail. We need that, a blueprint.